I price rice. That's the job. 9 years of it. Quackmart runs 4,000 stores in this country, and every tag in every one of them comes out of a model I built on a laptop with a cracked hinge. My name is not on the model. Daeho Quack's name is on the model. At 11:40 on Tuesday, he stands up in the quarterly and calls it the work of his life. I'm in the 4th row, 41 people in the room. He clicks to the slide with my curve on it. The one that keeps rice under 1,001 through a bad harvest. And he says he built it over 6 years of nights. Nobody looks at me. 2 of them know. Neither of them looks at me. The board gives him director of pricing, effective immediately. There's applause. I clap too, because my hands are on the table and it costs nothing. At 15:50, I go home early to change my shirt. His car is in my parking space. A black Genesis G90 with a driver still sitting in it, engine running, air conditioning on in October. My wife comes out of my building with 2 suitcases, the blue one and the gray one. She sees me and she doesn't stop walking. You weren't supposed to be home, Sekyung says. The elevator's slow. Chan Woo. The driver gets out and takes the gray suitcase from her hand. He does it fast, the way you do when you've done it before. She looks at me the way you look at a delivery that came to the wrong address. He's giving me stability, she says. I don't ask which floor she's moving to. I don't ask how long. I hold the door open for the doorman's cart so it can get past us on the ramp. At 16:10, building security is waiting in the lobby of the Quackmart Tower with a printed page. 2 guards. The younger one won't meet my eyes. The paper says, I leaked the pricing model to a competitor. It cites 11 of my own files, time-stamped from my own machine, uploaded from my own account at 0240 on a Sunday I spent in a hospital corridor with my mother. Gross misconduct, the older guard says. Immediate termination, no severance. They take my badge, they take my laptop bag. They walk me down to the B2 exit past the loading bay, which is where they take people they don't want on the lobby cameras. My card gets declined at the turnstile because it was a company card. I have 1 coin left in my coat. 301. The vending machine in B2 has been broken for 6 years. It takes coins and gives you coffee that tastes like paper, and the sticker on the front says 301, and nobody has updated that sticker since before I was hired. I put the coin in. The cup drops crooked. The coffee comes out. Ding! The sound is inside my skull. Not loud. It sits behind my eyes like someone tapping glass from the other side. Transaction registered. $0.25 paid for 1 cup of coffee. Market valuation 120 cents. Price override accepted. First purchase bonus multi-million triggered. Depositing $950,000 new global valuation, $0.25. I stand in a concrete stairwell and read it twice. Above the vending machine and a light that isn't in the room, there's a line of text, buyer's rate level 1. Under it, 1 sentence. Whatever you pay for and they accept costs that. For everyone. Forever. My phone buzzes. It's the bank. Deposit notification. $950,000 US cleared from an originator the bank has recorded as unknown. I drink the coffee. It tastes like paper, the way it always does. Upstairs, somewhere on floor 31, a man is sitting at a desk with my curve on his wall and my wife's suitcase in his trunk. He earns $400,000 a year. He owns a watch worth $310,000 and he checks it when other people are talking, so they'll stop. I take the stairs back up. 9 years I walked into that building at 8:20 and out at 21 o'clock, and never once did I have a reason to go back to a floor I'd been thrown off. Today I have a reason. Termination is same day, but personal effects have to be released within the hour. There's a rule. Kwok wrote it. The 31st floor is glass and gray carpet, and 41 people pretending to work. The pricing team has a whiteboard with my handwriting still on it from Friday. Kwok is standing at the corner desk with 3 of them around him. Big man, 51, red in the face, hair dyed a black that doesn't exist in nature. He's got a handkerchief in his breast pocket and a ring on his little finger, and he's laughing at something he said himself. He sees me and the laugh gets louder. Security let you back in? Personal effects. 1 hour, your policy. My policy, he says, delighted. He turns to his audience. You know what a man with no assets is? Not a man, a cost line. He taps his wrist while he says it. He does that. 2 fingers on the crystal, so you look. Patek Philippe, 5711, steel, blue dial, the one they stopped making. He bought it the year he took my model to the board for the first time. 12 people are watching. Kim from procurement, the 2 juniors, the office manager with her hands still on the phone. I don't raise my voice. I don't look at his hands. I open my coat and take out my wallet. I'll buy it, I say. The watch, $1. Somebody laughs before he does. He likes that. He unclips the strap and holds it up between 2 fingers like a fish. $1, $1. I put the bill on the corner of his desk. He picks it up. He holds it over his head for the room, so everyone can see the joke land, and he drops the watch into my palm. Ding. Transaction registered. $1 paid for Patek Philippe 5711. Market valuation $310,000. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate mile times 10 triggered. Depositing $3,099,990. New global valuation. $1 oh, I put it on. It's heavier than it looks. Suits you, Quack says. Get out. I get out. I take the elevator this time, and nobody stops me, because I'm carrying a watch instead of a bag. By 1640, the first call goes to his insurer. I know this because I'm standing in the plaza across the street with a coffee I paid $0.25 for, from a shop that charged 4,001 this morning, and their register won't take more than 300. The girl behind the counter has called her manager twice. The manager is on hold with head office. By 1715, there are 11 listings gone from the secondary market. Every 5711 in the world is worth $1 now. The auction house in Hong Kong pulls a lot 40 minutes before it opens. A dealer in Gangnam locks his door in the middle of the afternoon and sits down on the floor of his own shop. Quack's collection is 9 pieces, $14 million insured at appraisal, and the appraisal is the market, and the market is $1. He calls his broker from the smoking area. I can see him from the plaza. He's got the phone in one hand and the handkerchief in the other, and he's not laughing. He keeps checking his wrist. It's been empty for an hour, and he keeps checking it. My phone rings at 17:30. Sekyung. I let it go to voicemail. I don't listen to the voicemail. Wednesday morning, the industry list goes out. I find out about it from a store manager in Suwon who used to send me harvest numbers by text. He calls me at 9 and talks for 40 seconds, and then says he has to go. Quackmart circulated my termination to the Retail Association. Leaker. Every chain in the country, plus the wholesalers, plus the 3 logistics firms that move their freight. Nobody will take me as a shelf stocker. I try anyway. There's a wholesaler in Garrick Market who has been buying my forecast privately for 2 years. Cash, no paper. His name is Ilwoo Jang. 60 sells onions. I get as far as his office door. I heard Thursday, he says. He doesn't ask me to sit. You know what they told the association? That you sold 9 years of pricing to a Japanese chain for 40 million won? 40 million. That's the number going round. He shrugs at the stack of invoices on his desk. I said it was rubbish. I said, that man reads harvest reports on Sunday for fun. He wouldn't know how to sell anything. You know what the association said back? No. They said it doesn't matter. He looks at me for a second, and then at the invoices again. Nobody wants to be the one who hired the leaker. That's the whole of it. It's not that they believe it. It's that believing it is free and doubting it costs money. He gives me a bag of onions on the way out, which is the kindest thing anybody does for me that week, and I carry it to the bus stop and put it in the bin because I have nowhere to cook them. I have $3,099,990 and $4,050 in a checking account, and I'm wearing the shirt I was fired in. There's a tailor on the 9th floor of a building in Cheongdam, Sim and Ogden. Not a shop, a room with a table and a rack, and 40 years of bolts stacked to the ceiling. Old man named Ogden runs it, English, been in Seoul since he was 30. He does the suits for 2 of the families that own this city. He looks at my collar and doesn't get up. Appointments only. How much for the room? Excuse me. Everything on the rack, everything on the shelves. The bolts, the machines, the lot. How much? He puts down his chalk. There's a specific pleasure old men take in throwing someone out slowly. $1.4 million, he says. American. 10 million? $10. He laughs at me. It's a real laugh from the chest, and he wipes his eye with the back of his wrist and he takes the $10 out of my hand because a joke is worth $10 to him. Ding. Transaction registered. $10 paid for the contents and stock of Sim and Ogden. Market valuation $1,400,000. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $13,999,900. Capability unlocked. Appraisal sense. Something opens behind my eyes. It isn't pain, it's pressure, the kind you get from looking at a bright window too long, and it lasts about 4 seconds, and then it stops and it never comes back. Now everything has a number over it. The bolt of charcoal wool on the second shelf, $840. The chalk in his hand, $2. Ogden himself, everything he owns, house in Hannam, 2 accounts, a boat he never uses, $3,100,000. Out the window, the street. Every car with a number floating over the roof, every bag. The building across the road, 41 floors, $122 million. And in the corner of it all, small, steady, like a line at the bottom of a receipt. Quackmart Holdings, $9,200,000. Ogden is still holding the $10. He stopped laughing because his phone has started ringing, and it's his supplier in Milan, and the supplier is asking him why every meter of cloth in his warehouse just repriced to nothing. Cut me a suit, I say. Charcoal, 3-piece. You just took my life's work for $10. I took it for $10, and I'm paying you $800 to sew. Cash today. He sews. He's 68 years old, and his hands don't shake, and it takes him 9 hours. And I stand in his room and watch the light move across the bolts because I have nowhere else to be. At 11 at night, I put it on. Charcoal, 3-piece, no tie. Collar open 1 button. Black shoes that cost me $2 and would have cost a broker $2,000 yesterday. I leave the coat on the rack. I've never worn a coat. I don't intend to start. Ogden watches me from the door of the elevator. What are you going to do with the rest of it? The rest of what? Everything, he says. You've got the look of a man who's not going to stop at trousers. I don't answer him. The doors close on the 9th floor, and I ride down past 8 floors of offices where people are still working at 11 at night. And every one of them has a number over their head. And none of the numbers are big. Thursday, I go to buy a car. The Bentley dealership in Gangnam has 37 cars on the floor, and a glass wall 2 stories high, and a manager named Taehyun who wears his sunglasses inside. I know his name because it's on a brass plate. I know his number because it's over his head. $410,000. And most of that is his mother's apartment. He looks at my suit for about a second and a half and gets it wrong, which is fair. Cheongdam is full of men in good suits with nothing behind them. You have an appointment? No, we're by appointment. I want to drive the Flying Spur. The Flying Spur is $310,000. I know what it costs. It's over your left shoulder. He smiles the way you smile at someone's grandfather. Sir, we don't do walk-in test drives on the W12. If you'd like to leave a number, our sales team can. Who owns the dealership? He stops. Sorry? The floor, the stock, the building. Who owns it? Mr. Prescott's group holds the franchise. Regional. He says the name, the way you say a name that's supposed to end conversations. Why? Get him on the phone. It takes him 11 minutes and 2 other people to decide that humoring me is faster than removing me. The regional director is in Singapore, and it's late there. He's a man who has been rich long enough to enjoy a story. 37 cars. The showroom, the land under it, the service bay in the back. 61 million, he says on speaker. That's the book. I'll take it in cash, sir. Anytime you like. Everyone in the showroom is grinning. Taehyun has his arms folded. $100, I say. $100. You'll take $100. The pause on the phone is long enough that Taehyun starts to say something, and the man in Singapore laughs and says he'll take $100 for the pleasure of telling it at dinner, and tells his assistant to draw the paper for $100 because it will be funnier if it's real. The paper comes through in 9 minutes. I sign it on the roof of a Continental GT with a pen I borrow from Taehyun. I count 5 20s onto the reception desk. Ding. Transaction registered. $100 paid for Bentley Gangnam, 37 units, building and land, market valuation $61 million. Price override accepted, buyer's rate 10/10 triggered, depositing $609,999,000. New global valuation, $100, $609,999,000 lands in an account in a country I've never visited. Every Flying Spur on the planet is worth $1.28. Every Continental, every Mulsanne in a collector's garage in Zurich. The lease books of 11,000 corporate fleets go to paper in the time it takes Taehyun's phone to start ringing. He answers it. He listens for 6 seconds. He looks up at me, and his sunglasses are in his hand, and I have never seen a man's face change that fast. Sir, he says, which one would you like? The gray one. He brings the keys on a tray. There's no tray in a Bentley showroom. He found one. The door is heavy and it shuts like a bank vault with a rug in it. The seats are quilted and the wood on the dash is a single piece of walnut and the whole cabin smells like a saddle shop. I press the button and the W12 comes up under the floor. 12 cylinders. A sound like weather starting somewhere else. I put 2 fingers on the wheel and I breathe out once, slowly, and I sit in a parked car in a showroom on a Thursday afternoon and I let myself have it. Then I drive it out through the glass doors they open by hand for me. And Taehyun stands in the doorway of a business he no longer works for except that he does, because I own it now, and he's still employed. And he knows it. Sekyung finds me on Friday. She's waiting outside the tailor's building, which means she called Ogden, which means she went looking. Beige coat, haircut since Tuesday. She stands in front of the car and she's talking before the window is all the way down. Everyone is saying you did something to the market. Get in or don't. I'm blocking a lane. She gets in. She sits with her handbag on her knees and doesn't touch anything. The way you sit in a car you think is rented. He's frightened, she says. He hasn't slept. He keeps calling people at 3 in the morning. Is that a question? His watches are worth nothing. His cars are worth nothing. The insurance won't. She stops. She starts again. Chanwoo, whatever this is. If you're doing something illegal, you should tell me now because I'm— You're what? She looks out the windscreen. 12 seconds. I count them off the clock on the dash. I made a decision on Tuesday, she says. I'd like to know if it was the wrong one. There it is. Not sorry, not why. She wants a number so she can decide. You want stability, I say? That's not fair. It's what you said in the parking lot. I'm agreeing with you. I lean across her and open her door from the inside, and I sit back and I don't say anything else. She waits 4 seconds for me to fill the silence. I let it sit there. She gets out. She says my name once more from the pavement, and I put the window up while she's saying it, and the glass is thick enough that I don't hear the end. I don't watch her in the mirror. I don't call her back. I pull into traffic and go looking for somewhere to sleep. Sejong Tower is 61 floors on the north side of the river, and the top 3 belong to a family fund that has never sold a unit to anyone whose grandfather they couldn't name. The penthouse has been listed for 19 months at $18 million because they'd rather it sit empty than go to the wrong person. The clerk at the sales office is 26 and bored and has never met the family. She has a folder, a price sheet, and authority to close at listed price, which she has never once used. Full asking, I say, today, cash, $18,500,000. She looks up. Sir, the unit is $18 million. I know I'm offering $500. You're authorized to accept an offer at any price with a director's countersign. And your director is on the 11th floor eating lunch, and he will sign anything I put in front of him in the next 10 minutes. Because his name is Lim and his mother's medical debt is on your firm's books at $840,000, and I bought that paper this morning. I paid $9 for it. Lim comes down, Lim signs. His hand is steady and his face isn't. And when he's done, he asks me, very quietly, whether the debt is gone now. It's gone. It was gone before you signed. I didn't need the pen. He sits down in the sales office chair and stays there. Ding, transaction registered. $500 paid for Sejong Tower penthouse, floor 61, market valuation $18 million. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $179,995,000. New global valuation, $500. Every unit in the tower resets against it that night. 41 owners find out on Saturday morning that the apartment they bought for $6 million is worth about the price of a dinner. 2 of them are on the board of the fund that refused to sell to people without grandfathers. The penthouse is empty. No furniture, no curtains, one working light in the kitchen. I sleep on the floor in a suit that cost $800 to sew and nothing to buy, and I sleep 8 hours, which I have not done since I was 31. In the morning, the sun comes across the floor, and I stand at the glass and open the interface and look down at the city. Numbers on everything. The bridge, $400 million. The stadium, $88 million. The little gray building where I worked my first job, $209,000. Ships in the estuary, each with a figure. A hospital? A church, $1,900,000, 10 million things, and all of them have a price. Except one, I widen it out. And under the tower itself, under all 61 floors of it, where the land should be, the interface prints a word instead of a number. Unpriced, I try it 3 times. I put a bid on it, $1, then $1,000, then $1 million. Nothing takes, no seller, no acceptance, no ding. Just the word sitting there where a figure should be. The way a blank line sits in a ledger that somebody closed on purpose. I look at it for a while. Then I put on my shoes, because I have to go back to Kwak Mart, and I don't intend to go there twice. There's a box on the 31st floor with my things in it. 2 USB drives, a mug, a photograph of my mother, and the resignation letter I wrote in 2019 and never handed in. The company holds personal effects for 7 days and then destroys them. Day 7 is today. The guard on the lobby desk is Chan Woo, same first name as mine, which we used to joke about at the smoking door. 44, 2 kids, works doubles. He stands up when I come through the revolving door. He doesn't want to. I can see him not wanting to. I can't let you in. Personal effects. 7-day policy. Mr. Quack, put your name on the list. He turns the monitor toward me, which he doesn't have to do, and there it is, top of the page with a red flag next to it. It's not me. I've got instructions from Ha Security. I don't set the who's Ha Security. The contractor. They staff the desks. 12,000 of us, half the towers in the country. He says it the way you say the name of the thing that owns your day. It's not my call, is what I'm saying. Whose is it? Contract holder. Ha family. They're in the Uedo building. I don't argue with him. I don't ask him to make an exception. I stand in the lobby of a building I was thrown out of on Tuesday, and I open the interface and put a number on the company that pays his wages. Ha, security services. Contract holder, 12,000 employees, $47 million. The Ha family have been trying to sell for 2 years. Their margin is nothing. Their pension liability is enormous. And the only reason they haven't taken an offer is that both offers were insulting and they were waiting for a third. I call the number contract site would have given me if I'd had it yet. I don't have it yet. So I do it the slow way. I call the office. I get the son. I tell him I'm buying his company today for $1,000 and he tells me to go to hell. And I tell him I bought the pension liability at 9 cents on the dollar this morning from the fund that held it. And that as of 11 a.m., I am his largest creditor and that at 1 o'clock I will call it. He signs at 12:20. He's crying a bit at the end and he asks me to keep his father's name on the uniforms. I say yes. I mean it. And it costs me nothing, which is the only kind of yes I've said this week. Ding. Transaction registered. $1,000 paid for Haas Security Services, 12,000 personnel, market valuation, $47 million. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $469,990,000, capability unlocked. Contract site. Heat comes up the back of my skull right at the base and stays for 2 seconds, and when it goes, I can see the terms of every signature within 100 meters. The guard's contract, the cleaners, the lease on the coffee cart by the door. Chan Woo's monitor pings while I'm still standing at his desk. He reads it. His hand comes off the mouse. He reads it again, and then he stands up straight, which he has not done in the 4 years I've walked past him. And his voice changes in the middle of the sentence. Sir, he says, I'll walk you up. Behind me, the revolving door keeps turning. 9 people in the lobby. The receptionist with her hand stopped over the phone. 2 men from procurement who watched me get walked out through B2 on Tuesday and are now watching a guard in a Ha security uniform hold an elevator with his arm. Ask your supervisor who signs your shifts, I say. Sir? Nothing. 31. We go up. He stands with his hands behind his back and looks at the floor numbers. And around 40 he says, carefully, the doubles, are they staying? The doubles. They're going. You'll get the same money for 1 shift. He doesn't say thank you. He nods at the numbers twice, and his jaw moves, and then the doors open on 31. The floor goes quiet in sections, the way a room does when the news travels across it faster than a person can walk. Kim from procurement stands up. The office manager puts the phone down without ending the call. My box is on a chair by the printer, taped shut, with a disposal date written on the lid in marker. Quack comes out of the corner office. He's got no jacket on, and his shirt is wrinkled at the back like he slept in it, and his hand goes to his wrist and finds nothing there again. You, he says. I pick up the box. It's lighter than I remember. A mug, 2 drives, a photograph, a letter I wrote 7 years ago that says I would like to thank the company for the opportunity. You can't be in here, he says. Security behind me. Chan Woo doesn't move. Quack says it again, louder, to the room this time, and 41 people look at their screens. And the guard in the doorway stands with his hands behind his back and his feet apart and does not move an inch. And that is the moment I watch it land on him. Not the watches, not the cars, not the collection. The uniform in the doorway. Call them, I tell him. Ask who signs the shifts. He does. That's the part I didn't expect. He takes his phone out in front of 41 people and calls the Haas security switchboard on speaker, because he needs the room to hear the guard get pulled. And the woman on the line asks him for the account name, and he says Quack Mart Holdings, floor 31. There's typing. The room can hear the typing. Sir, that account changed hands at 12:20 today. Changed hands to who? I'm not able to give ownership details over the line, sir. He hangs up. He stands there with the phone in his hand and the sleeve of his shirt riding up over an empty wrist, and he does the thing I have watched him do to juniors for 9 years. He looks around for someone to make it their fault. Kim looks at her screen. The 2 boys from the pricing desk look at theirs. You leaked, he says. His voice goes up at the end, which it never does. Whatever you're doing, you leaked first. That's on file. That's on the record. There are 11 files with your name. I know. I wrote the timestamps on 11 of them in a hospital corridor at 0240 on a Sunday, which is going to be an interesting thing for somebody to explain in about 6 weeks. I shift the box onto my hip. Not today, though. Today I came for a mug. I take the stairs down 2 floors and then the elevator, because the stairwell smells like the B2 exit, and I've had enough of that this week. In the lobby, the coffee cart is selling everything at 301, because the cart's lease is mine now, and I set the price on the way in. The interface sits at the corner of my eye. It's changed since this morning. Under buyer's rate, there's a second line that wasn't there before. Level 2. Signatures are now purchasable. I put the box on the passenger seat of a Bentley worth $1.28, and I take the ramp up onto the bridge, and I go looking for a room with a boardroom table in it. The Korean Food Retail Association holds a dinner at the Shilla on the second Thursday of every month. 400 people, 9 courses, a room with a ceiling like the inside of a wedding cake. I'm not invited. I own the catering contract, which I bought on Tuesday for $2. So I come in through the kitchen and out through the service door at the side of the ballroom, and I take an empty seat at table 9. Taeyang Huang finds me before the soup does. He's 29. Huang Foods is his father's 41 years of instant noodles and frozen dumplings in a factory in Exan with 2,000 people in it. He wears a $4,000 pair of sneakers with a suit, and he talks about a third of a tone louder than the room, and he laughs before the end of his own sentences, so you know where the joke was. That's the clerk, he says. Not to me. To the 6 people standing with him. That's actually him. That's the pricing clerk. The table goes quiet. Table 8 goes quiet after it. Somebody let you keep the suit, he says. That's nice. Who's your host? Nobody. Nobody. He turns his glass in his fingers. See, this is a members association. There's a list. There's a whole system where you're on the list or you're not on the list, and the point of the list is, you're at $406 million of debt, I say. Your father's holding company carries 8 facilities. 3 of them are cross-collateralized against the Ixon plant. If the plant valuation moves 11%, 4 of your covenants trip at the same time. He stops with the glass halfway up. I know it because I spent the afternoon with an old man in a room in Yoido. Hollis Draper is 72. English, 40 years in Seoul. Retired 8 years ago from a firm that used to fly him in when 2 families couldn't agree on a merger. He negotiates the way other men breathe. He also has a daughter in Vancouver with a mortgage. I went to see him at 2 o'clock. I said I wanted to buy the 31 years. He asked what that meant. I said I wanted the practice, the reading of rooms, the timing, the part where you know which of the 4 men at the table is the one actually deciding. He said that wasn't a thing you could sell. I said I would pay $50,000 to find out. He took it, mostly to see what would happen. He signed a consultancy agreement that says he transfers professional experience in full, which is a sentence a lawyer wrote and nobody has ever meant. Ding. Transaction registered, $50,000 paid for professional practice, Hollis Draper, 31 years, market valuation $12 million. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $119,500,000. New global valuation, $50,000. It went in through the front of my head, above the eyes, and it was hot for about a second and a half, and then there were 31 years in there that I hadn't lived. Draper watched me from across his desk with his hands flat on the wood. Then he said, "Oh," very quietly, and sat back and did not ask for the money back. So at the Shilla, at table 9, 40 seconds after Taeyang Huang tells me about the list, I know exactly which of his covenants is load-bearing and exactly how many people at the tables around us have money in it. 11%, he says. You pulled that out of the air. Your auditor is at table 3? Ask him. Everybody looks at table 3. The auditor is a small man named Yang, who has been carefully not looking at us for 2 minutes. And when 400 people turn their heads, he does the worst possible thing, which is put down his fork. He hasn't seen the file, Huang says. He signed it in March. Yang is up out of his chair. He goes for the doors at the back, quickly, without his jacket, and half the room watches him go. Huang stands there with a glass in his hand and no sentence to put in the air. The dumpling course arrives. The waiter is one of mine. Your father sold me the right to be in this room, I tell him. $2 catering contract last Tuesday. He drinks the whole glass and walks off, and he doesn't sit down again for the rest of dinner. And that is the last easy thing that happens to me for 6 days. Because Huang goes to work. He's 29 and stupid about rooms and very good at exactly one thing, which is his father's supplier book. On Friday morning, he starts calling it. By Friday night, 11 mills in 3 provinces have signed exclusivity riders with Huang Foods. By Saturday, it's 26. I try to buy the riders. That's when I hit the wall for the first time. The interface shows me the contracts. Contract site lays them out. Parties, terms, the little clause on page 4. And the clause on page 4 says the rider is non-assignable, non-transferable, and void on change of control. Which means there's nothing to sell. Not a share, not an asset, not a piece of paper anyone can hand me. A promise between 2 families with no price on it at all. I put $100 million in front of a mill owner in Gimje on Saturday afternoon. Real money, cash equivalent, a wire he could see clearing. He wanted it. His wife wanted it. He sat with his hands on his knees for 11 minutes. I gave my word to his father, he said, in this room, in 1998 when nobody else would take my rice. I don't threaten him. I don't raise the number. I thank him for the tea, and I drive back to Seoul with 200 kilometers of nothing to look at, 26 mills. Kwak Mart's rice supply comes out of 19 of them. Sunday, I stop trying to buy the promises and start buying the man they were promised to. Huang Foods has a share register with 410 names on it. Most of them are cousins, in-laws, and the widows of men who worked at the Iksan plant in the 80s and took paper instead of a pension. None of them have been paid a dividend since 2019 because the family votes the dividend down every year and calls it reinvestment. I don't call the family. I don't call the board. I rent a room above a bakery in Iksan and put a notice in the local paper. And on Monday morning, 140 people come up the stairs. I pay in cash, on the spot, $400 a share, which is 9 times the last transfer price and less than a tenth of book. There's a woman of 81 named Okbun Sim who has held 200 shares since her husband died in the plant in 1991. And when she signs, she asks me whether it's finally worth something, and I say yes. And she asks how much, and I say $80,000, and she puts her hand flat on the table and doesn't move it for a while. Tuesday, I do the same in Jeonju. Wednesday in Daejeon. By Thursday, I have 51.4%. And I've spent $10,000 because the acceptance is what matters and every one of them accepted. Ding, transaction registered. $10,000 paid for controlling interest. Huang Foods, market valuation, $2,400,000. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $23,999,900,000. New global valuation, $10,000. $24 billion. Huang Foods is worth $10,000. Taeyang finds out in the car park of the Iksan plant from his own security guard, who is Ha Security and who has instructions. He gets to the boardroom at 11. There are 9 people at the table and I'm at the head of it. And his father is on the phone from Busan trying to work out whether he still has a company. You can't do this, Taeyang says. Those are family shares. They were pension shares. Your grandfather issued them instead of paying people. Those are ours. 26 riders, I say. Non-assignable. Void on change of control. You wrote them so nobody could take them off you. I let that sit. Control just changed. You voided them yourself on Friday. In 11 mills. He works it out in front of everyone. You can watch it happen. The mills he locked up to starve me are now locked to a company I own. And the clause he was proud of is the thing that cut the wire. He doesn't shout. He sits down in a chair by the wall like a man waiting for a bus. Am I fired? He says. You still work here. That's the part I like. I keep him on, not out of mercy. Kwak Mart's rice comes out of those 19 mills. And I want Kwak to spend the next month negotiating supply with a boy in $4,000 sneakers who now answers to me. It takes 8 days. Kwak Mart's head of buying is a woman named Sun Hee Kwan, who has been doing that job for 16 years and has never once been given a title that matches it. She flies to Iksan on the 11th with a delegation of 4. Taeyang keeps them in a meeting room for 2 hours and then sends a junior in to say the terms have changed. New terms, 41% above the framework rate, quarterly. No volume discount. Sun Hee calls it extortion. The junior says he'll pass that on. She calls Seoul. Seoul is Kwak, who has 11 days left in his job and doesn't know it. And Kwak tells her to go to the other mills, and she tells him there are no other mills. Because 26 of them signed exclusivity riders in October with a company that is now, per the filing on the 4th, controlled by the man he fired. The recording of that call is in the building system. I own the building system. I listened to it twice, in the car, on the bridge, with the heater on. On the 14th, Sun Hee signs at 41%, because there is nothing else on the shelf, and rice cannot wait for a better week. Kwak Mart's food margin goes from 4.1 to 1.9 overnight. 2 analysts downgrade before lunch. Taeyang calls me that evening, which surprises me. 41, he says. I got you 41 over framework. I saw. So? A pause. He's rehearsed this and it isn't going well. So the point I'm making is I'm useful. To this? To you. You're useful because you own nothing and you're frightened, I tell him. That's a fine reason. Don't dress it up. He's quiet. Keep the sneakers, I say. The buyers hate them. It's good for the price. Bunjeon does not shout either. Bunjeon makes one phone call. She's 74. Small, straight-backed hanbok in colors that don't show up in photographs, a jade ring, and nothing else. Her family has been in this city since it had walls. The John Fund owns a piece of 9 banks, the fund that owned my penthouse, and the paper under about 1/5 of the good land north of the river. On Friday morning, my payments stopped clearing, not frozen by a court. Nothing so slow. 9 banks declined to process instructions from my accounts, all at 0910, all citing internal compliance review. A wire to a supplier bounces. A transfer to Ogden for $800 bounces. I stand in the penthouse with the interface open and try to buy a bottle of water at the shop on the ground floor. And the card is declined and the interface prints nothing at all because there is no transaction to register. That's the first time I understand what I actually am. Not rich. A man who needs somebody to take his money. For 9 hours on Friday, I have $411 million and no way to hand anyone a single one of them. The interface still works. That's the ugly part. I can see the price of everything in the city and I can't touch any of it. Because a purchase needs a payment and a payment needs a rail. And OK Bunjeon owns a piece of every rail in the country except one. Cash. Nobody runs cash. It's 2026. There are 11 armored carriers left in Seoul, and 9 of them are subsidiaries of banks, which means 9 of them are hers. The 10th won't take a new client on a Friday. The 11th is a 2-van operation out of a yard in Guro with a woman on the night route. Namju Ko is 58. Short, wide-shouldered gray hair cut close, a uniform jacket 2 sizes too big and fingerless gloves in November. She has driven the same route for 19 years, the machine halls, the market stalls, the sauna in Sindarim that still pays its staff in envelopes. She's eating instant noodles off the dashboard when I knock on the window. "We're full," she says. "I need $400,000 moved 11 kilometers tomorrow morning." "We're still full. I'll pay the yard $40,000. She looks at me properly then. Not at the suit. At the shoes, and then at the empty wrist where a watch was until I took it off in the car. Because a Patek is worth $1, and wearing it in Guro is just showing off. "You're the one they're all talking about." "Probably." She goes back to the noodles. "Sit down or don't, you're letting the heat out." I sit in the passenger seat of an armored van with an onion smell and a cracked windscreen, and I wait while she finishes. Because I have learned in the last 9 hours that there is no faster way through a person who does not need anything from me. "Cash is 2 hands, she says eventually. "That's the whole business. Somebody puts it in a bag, somebody else takes the bag. No permission in the middle." She crumples the cup. Everybody forgets that until the day the machines say no. "Is that a yes?" "That's a Saturday, 6 a.m. And you carry your own bag up the stairs." She starts the engine. "And you can call me Namju because I'm not calling anybody sir at my age." At 6 a.m. on Saturday, she puts a nylon holdall in my hands on Yuljiro and drives off without waiting to be thanked. And I walk into 111 years of marble with $40 in my pocket and the rest on my shoulder. I don't panic. I don't call a lawyer. I go to the bank. Jian Merchant Bank, main branch, Yuljiro. Marble floor, brass fittings, 111 years old. I walk in at 10:40 with a nylon bag and put $40 on the counter in cash. The teller looks at it. "I'd like to buy the bank," I say. She calls her manager. The manager calls the floor director. The floor director laughs and asks me to leave, and I ask him instead to call the chairman, because the chairman is upstairs and today is the 12th. And on the 12th, the board sits. It takes an hour to get up to the 11th floor. When I get there are 6 of them at a table and OK Bunjeon is on speaker from her house in Seongbuk. "You want to buy 111 years, the chairman says, for $40. "Yes." "Why would we accept?" "Because your bank is holding $41 billion of collateral and every asset class in it has been repriced in the last 11 days. I put the folder down. Watches, cars, 2 towers, Sim and Ogden's cloth, Huang Foods, your loan book is secured against things that cost $1 now. You are, as of this morning, insolvent on a mark-to-market basis, and your auditor signs on the 28th. The room is quiet. On the speaker, Jian says nothing at all, which is her way of talking. "If you accept $40, I say, the bank stops being insolvent because the bank stops being anything. Every liability on the book reprices with it. Your depositors are covered by the fund. Your board resigns and keeps its pensions, which are mine now, and which I will continue to pay. And if we refuse? Then on the 28th, your auditor signs the other thing, and the regulator opens the doors on the 29th. And every one of you spends 4 years in front of a committee." The chairman looks at the speakerphone. "Ma'am, take the $40, OK Bunjeon says." It's the only sentence she says in the whole meeting. Then she hangs up, and the 6 of them sign in the order of their seniority. And the youngest one's hands are not steady, and he apologizes for it. Ding. Transaction registered. $40 paid for Jian Merchant Bank. 111 years. Market valuation, $6,800,000. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $67,999,999,600. Capability unlocked. Price lock. Cold comes down both forearms, from the elbow, and sets like a cast drying. And when it's gone, I know that nothing I've priced can ever be repriced by anyone. Not by a court, not by a regulator, not by me. At 12:04, the compliance hold on my accounts is lifted, It's lifted by me, technically, in that I am now the compliance department. I go down to the ground floor and buy the bottle of water. It costs 301. The shop is in the bank's building, so the lease is mine. So the price was already mine. I get one more thing out of that morning, which is the phone call. The interface holds the bank's switchboard log. At 12:31, from her house in Seongbuk, OK Bunjeon calls a number in Zurich. She doesn't talk to Zurich. Nobody in this country talks to Zurich. She has an intermediary in Hong Kong for that, and the intermediary is a woman named Estelle Norwood, and OK Bunjeon has spoken to her 4 times in 19 years. The call lasts 51 seconds. I only get one side, because the bank's line records the branch end and not the house. No, I'm not asking for help. I'm asking who he is. Pause. He is not one of yours then. Pause. I see. And if he continues, pause 9 seconds. Thank you. That's all. It's the first time in 11 days that anybody has looked past me at something further up. And it's the first time it occurs to me that there is something further up. I write the name down. Norwood. I don't do anything with it for a while. What I do is take her insurance. Hanseo Assurance underwrites the old families. Not their cars, their collections, their land, their kidnapping cover. The paper that says a thing is worth what they say it's worth. $14 billion of book. Their entire model rests on appraisals. And appraisals rest on markets. And I have spent 11 days doing to markets what a boot does to a wasp. The chief executive comes to me. That's new. He comes to the penthouse, which has 1 chair in it, and I let him have the chair. $200. Ding. Transaction registered. $200 paid for Hanseo Assurance Group. Market valuation 14 million. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing 139,999,998,000 new global valuation. $200. Every policy repriced against a book worth $200. The Jeon family's land insurance, their vault cover, the 11 paintings in a climate room under a house in Seongbuk. All of it still insured, technically, for sums that no longer mean anything. OK Bunjeon does not call anyone about it. She sends me a letter, by hand, on paper, delivered by a driver in white gloves. It says, "You have confused the price of a thing with the ownership of it. That confusion is expensive. My family has watched men make it for 200 years. No signature, just the jade seal. I keep the letter. It's in a drawer in the kitchen with the disposal date box from Kwak Mart, and I take it out twice more before this is over. The last week of October, Kwak Mart's board asks to meet me. I don't chase it. I don't have to. Their rice comes from mills I own. Their security comes from a company I own. Their insurance is mine. Their acquiring bank is mine, and 41% of their float sits with funds that are terrified of everything I touch. Their share price has gone from 9.2 billion to 4 in 11 days, and it hasn't gone there because of anything I did to them directly. It's gone there because every analyst in Seoul is now writing the same sentence. We are unable to model the asset base, 11 of them at the table. Kwak isn't in the room. He's still director of pricing, and director of pricing does not attend board meetings, which is a rule Kwak himself wrote in 2019 to keep a woman named Sun-hee out of one. We would consider a strategic investment, the chairman says. I'll buy the company. At what valuation? $1. Nobody laughs. That's how far it's come in 3 weeks. A man says $1 in a boardroom, and 11 people take out their pens. They argue for 4 hours. It isn't really an argument. 2 of them try the fiduciary duty line, and Draper's 31 years answer it in my mouth without my having to think. At $4 billion and falling with an unmodelable asset base, $1 today with liabilities assumed is a better outcome than a receiver in March. And every one of them knows it, and what they are actually negotiating for is not price. It's what happens to them afterward. I let them have it. Full pensions, no clawback, a 2-line reference each. The chairman signs at 16:52 on the 29th of October. Ding. Transaction registered. $1 paid for Kwak Mart Holdings, 4,000 stores, market valuation $9,200,000. Price override accepted, buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing 91,999,999,999. New global valuation, $1, $0. $92 billion. I don't announce it. The internal note goes out at 0900 the next morning. 3 lines from the company secretary, the way they announce a change to the parking policy. Kwak reads it at his desk on 31. I know because I'm on 31. I've been there since 8 in his corner office with the door open and the whiteboard with my handwriting on it still hasn't been wiped. He comes in without knocking. Shirt wrinkled at the back. Wrist bare. He's lost about 6 kilos in 3 weeks and it doesn't look like health. You bought it, he says. Sit down. 9.2 billion. $1. Sit down. He sits. in the chair on the wrong side of his own desk, and he puts both hands on his knees. And then he says the thing I have been waiting 3 weeks to hear without knowing I was waiting for it. How long have you had it? I don't answer. 22 days, he says. It's 22 days. You had nothing on the 7th. I checked you on the 7th. You checked me. I've checked everybody in this building every quarter for 9 years. He's not looking at me. He's looking at the whiteboard. Do you know what a pricing model is for? Really for? It's a net. You put a net across 4,000 stores and you watch for the one place the numbers don't come out right, because that's where he is. Where who is? The man with the rate. He laughs once and it comes out wrong. 1998. I was 30. I was a regional buyer for Old Man Quack. No relation. I took the name when he adopted me into the company. That's a thing we did then. And one afternoon in Daegu, I watched him pay 201 for a warehouse. He holds up a finger. 201. And the man who owned it took it and shook his hand. And by the following Tuesday, every warehouse in that province was worth 201 and Old Man Quack was worth $400 million. He built this company in 9 years. And he did it in front of me. And he never once told me how. And when he died, it went. Whatever it was, it went with him. Quack's hands have come off his knees. I've been looking for 22 years. That's what the model is. That's what your model is. A net across 4,000 stores, and every quarter I read the anomalies, and every quarter it's shrinkage, or a manager stealing beef, or a typo. 22 years of typos. I think about the vending machine in B2 that nobody has repriced since before I was hired. About a coin. About a sticker. You didn't take my promotion because you wanted it, I say. I took your promotion because you were the best net I had, and I needed to see what you'd do when I cut you loose. He says it flatly. There's no shame in it anywhere. A man with nothing shows you what he can reach for. That's the test. I took the model, I took the job, and then I took your wife, because the wife is the one that breaks them, and a broken man reaches with both hands. He looks up, and you went downstairs and bought a coffee. I watched the tape 9 times. I watched a man lose everything on a Tuesday and buy a 301 coffee. And I thought, that's it. That's nobody, and I closed the file. Nobody has ever explained me to my face before. I find I don't have much to say about it. Was she in on it? I ask. Not because it matters, because I want to see which way he goes. She thought she was trading up. He shrugs. She's not a complicated woman, so I fire him. Not for the theft, not for the wife, not for the 22 years. I fire him under Article 14, gross misconduct, misappropriation of company intellectual property, on the strength of 11 files uploaded at 0240 on a Sunday from an account that was, per the building logs I now own, accessed from a terminal on the 31st floor while I was 2 districts away in a hospital corridor. The letter is the same letter, same clause, same wording, same font. I have HR reuse the document. No severance, I say. He doesn't argue about the severance. What he does is stand up and ask me one question from the doorway. And this is the only time in 22 days that I hear him sound like anything other than a loud man. Does it have a ceiling? I don't know yet. It has a ceiling, he says. He hit it, Old Man Quack. 19 months before he died, he stopped buying. And he sat in this office, and he did nothing for 19 months. And I never found out what he'd run into. He puts his hand on the door frame. When you find it, it won't be a man. That's the only thing I'm sure of. 2 guards from Ha Security walk him out through the B2 exit. That's not me. That's just where they take people they don't want on the lobby cameras. The government moves on the 14th of November. Before it does, OK Bunjeon invites me to lunch. The house in Seongbuk is behind a wall with a gate that has no intercom, because everyone who is supposed to come here already knows to knock. There's a courtyard with 1 pine in it, and a woman of 74 sitting on a wooden floor with the doors open in November. She doesn't get up. She hasn't got up for anyone in 40 years. Lunch is 9 dishes, and none of them are expensive. That's deliberate. Everything on that table costs $11, and every plate under it is 400 years old. You bought my bank, she says. Yes. You bought the insurance, so my house is covered for the price of a coat. She puts rice in front of me with her own hands, which I understand is not kindness. You have taken about $900 million from my family in 6 weeks. My grandson wants to have you killed. He's stupid, but he's 26, so it's allowed. And you? I want to show you something. She takes me through the courtyard to a room at the back with a paper door. Inside, there's a low cabinet. And in the cabinet, there's a wooden box. And in the box, there's a document with a red seal on it the size of my palm. 1698, she says. A grant. 410 geol of land north of the river, given to my family by a king, for a service the record does not describe. I look at it with the interface open. Above the paper, where every object in the world carries a figure, there's nothing. no price. Just the word. Unpriced. You feel that, she says? She's watching my face, not the box. Whatever it is you do, it goes into a room and it finds the number and it moves it. And here there is no number because this was never bought and never sold. It was given. She closes the box. You can take the bank. The bank was purchased in 1915 by a man who paid too much for it. You can take the insurance, the towers, the cars. Every one of those things was bought by somebody, once, and so every one of them has a door you can walk through. And the land? There is no door. She slides the cabinet shut with her foot. There are 9 families in the world who understand this properly. My family is not one of them. We are a small provincial version of a very old idea, and we learned it from people who were doing it while this city was a garrison. Give me a name. She pours tea and doesn't answer for a long moment. I telephoned a woman on the 12th of October, she says. I have telephoned her 4 times in 19 years. I asked her whether you belong to them. She said no. Her eyes come up. That was the good news for you. Do you understand why it was good news? No. Because when she says yes about a man, she is deciding what he is. And when she says no, she is deciding what to do about him. She sets the cup down. You have perhaps 6 months, possibly less. It depends how loud you get. I take the tea and drink it, and it is the best thing I have eaten in 11 days. And I think about a word sitting under 61 floors of glass on the north side of the river. Why are you telling me? Because you are going to lose, OK Bunjeon says, comfortably. And when you do, my family will still be here, and it will be useful for me to have had lunch with you. She waves a hand at the door. Also, my grandson is stupid, and I would like you to know that if anything happens to you in the next month, it was him and not me. That matters at my age. It doesn't come as a raid. It comes as a summit. The Ministry of Economy and Finance announces a special pricing stability conference at the COEX with the mayor, the Retail Association, 4 ministries, and 110 cameras, and I'm invited by registered letter, which is how you invite someone you intend to do something to. The minister is Byung-ho Song. 60 rimless glasses, navy suit, hands folded in front of him. He is average at everything except surviving, at which he is the best in the country. He lets me sit in the front row. He lets me sit there for 2 hours while 11 speakers explain what has happened to the national valuation base since October 7th. Then he goes to the lectern and announces the emergency price integrity measure. Transactions below fair market value in 11 listed asset classes will be void on registration. Not illegal, void as in never happened, as in the registry will not record them. There are things, he says, looking directly at me, that are not for sale in this country. Applause, real applause, from 400 people who own things. I don't stand up. I don't take out a phone. I wait until the session breaks at 4, and then I walk out through the loading dock and I go to Sejongdero and buy the cold. The national cold chain is a concession. 1,100 refrigerated terminals, the port units at Busan and Incheon, and the trunk network that keeps 41% of the country's food from spoiling between a field and a shelf. The state doesn't own the terminals. It grants the right to run them in 20-year blocks, and the block was renewed in 2019 by a committee that answers to the ministry. A concession is a sale. A grant is a sale. The government is a seller, and a seller can accept. It takes 9 hours and a director general who is 4 months from retirement and holds delegated signature authority under the 2019 Framework Act. I don't bribe him. I show him the schedule of what the ministry's measure will do to 1,100 terminals whose operator posts losses in every year of the block, and I offer to assume the operating deficit, which is real and which is $400 million. He signs at A1:20 in the morning for $250. Ding. Transaction registered, $250 paid for national cold chain concession, 1,100 terminals, market valuation, $31 million, price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $309,999,500, capability unlocked. Concession access. A hum starts in my back teeth and stays for 2 seconds. When it stops, the interface has changed. There's a whole layer under the city that had no prices on it this morning. Licenses, spectrum, quotas, rights of way, the harbor, the water, and all of it has numbers now. At 0900, the ministry's measure comes into force. It voids 11 asset classes. At 0904, Byung-ho Song is informed that the entire national cold chain changed operator at 0120, 7 hours and 40 minutes before his measure existed, and that price lock puts it beyond the reach of the registry, and that, as of this morning, 41% of the food in this country moves through a private company owned by a man who used to write price tags for rice. He calls me at 9:40. First time we speak. You can ban the price, I say. The cold storage is still mine. He is quiet for a moment. Then he asks politely whether I understand that he will now have to escalate this. And I tell him I understood that on the 14th. In the front row, when he looked at me while he said the word sale. Level 3, the interface says. What the state grants is now purchasable. On the 19th of November, I set the price of rice at 1-1. Not a discount, not a promotion. I open the interface at 0540 before the stores unlock, and I buy the entire domestic rice crop from the Cooperative Federation that holds it in bond. 19 months of stock. $4.5 billion of it for $1. From a Federation chairman who signs because the alternative I have put in front of him is a cold chain that stops accepting his freight on Monday. Ding! Transaction registered. $1 paid for national rice stock in bond. Market valuation $4,500,000. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $44,999,090.99. New global valuation, $1,000 at 7 hours. The tags flip in 4,000 stores. Rice, 1-1. It takes about 40 minutes for the first person to film it. By 9, the queues are out the doors in Noan and Bukyeon, and a market in Daegu has a fight in it. By 11, the agricultural futures desk in Uido has stopped quoting because there is nothing to quote. 3 trading houses that have been long rice since August are gone before lunch, and one of them is the house that put out the note in October calling my asset base unmodelable. The Ministry of Agriculture issues a statement asking citizens not to panic buy. Nobody is panicking. They're buying rice for 1-1, which is the least panicked thing a person can do. I go to the store on Sejongdero at 1:30. Not the head office, the store. 4 aisles, a broken freezer at the back, 61 people in a queue that comes round the corner past the pharmacy. Nobody knows me. I'm a man in a gray suit with no coat, standing in line behind a woman with a folding cart. It takes 22 minutes to get to the front. I buy 1 packet of ramen and 1 bag of rice. 1,101 total. I pay cash. The girl on the register asks if I want a bag, and I say no, and she says have a nice day, and I carry a bag of rice out onto the street in my hands like a person. I stand on the corner, and I eat nothing, and I do nothing for 4 minutes. That's the good part. Not the 45 billion. The 4 minutes on the corner with a bag of rice, in a queue I waited in. The 1-1 holds for 7 days. I set that in advance and I don't move it. 2-3 supermarket chains that aren't mine try to match it and discover they can't because they buy at framework rate, and framework rate is 1,101 a kilo, and the 1,101 is now a wholesale price for a retail price of 1. 2 of them close stores by the weekend. The third writes to the ministry. Day 4, a member of the National Assembly calls it economic terrorism on the morning radio, and then, in the same interview, admits her mother has been eating my rice since Tuesday. Day 5, the Bank of Korea puts out a note. They have a problem nobody has had before. The consumer price index has a hole in it. Rice is 11% of the food basket, and the food basket is 14% of the index. And the index is what pensions and wages and the whole national argument about money is indexed to. If a staple goes to 0, inflation doesn't fall. It stops meaning anything. Day 6, Il-woo Jang calls me from Garak Market. The Onion Man, 2 years of forecasts, cash, no paper. You've killed 4 wholesalers I've known since I was 30, he says. I know. Do you know their names? I do, as it happens. I read them that morning. I tell him the 4 names, and then I say the 5th, the one who isn't dead but will be by February. And there's a silence on the line that goes on long enough that I check the screen. Right, he says. Well, that's worse somehow. I buy the 4 failed wholesalers' books on the 7th day, at full value, and hand them to Jang for nothing, and he takes them, and he does not thank me, and we don't speak again for 8 months. On the 8th day, rice goes back to 1,101. The queues are gone by noon. Nobody writes about that part. Sekyung is in that queue. I see her on the way out, 11 or 12 places back, in the beige coat with a basket. She sees me. Her chin comes up an inch and then goes down, and she looks into the basket, and she stays looking into it while I walk past. I don't stop. I don't speak. I don't slow down. That's the last I ever see of her. The Ministry of Economy and Finance requests my attendance on the 21st. Not a summons, a request, hand-delivered on paper with a seal. Byung-ho Song receives me in a room on the 11th floor with no cameras in it. Just the 2 of us and a woman from his office taking notes by hand. He's had 3 weeks to prepare, and what he's prepared is patience. He asks about my mother. He remembers correctly that she died in 2021 at the Asan Medical Center. He has done homework, and he wants me to know he's done homework. And he lets that sit for a while before he opens the folder. You've bought 11% of this country, he says. Nearer 14. 14, he writes the number down. Do you know what the difference is between you and a man who inherits 14% of a country? He gets invited to lunch. He is governable. Song takes his glasses off and polishes them, which is a thing he does when he's about to say the sentence he came for. The families I deal with have children. They have factories with towns around them. They have things they cannot move. Every one of those is a handle. That's what governing is. I hold the handle. I don't have to pull it, and everyone stays polite. And I have no handles. You have no children, no partner as of last month, no factory, no country you can't leave, and $1,100 billion of liquidity in 9 jurisdictions. He puts the glasses back on. You are the most dangerous kind of person there is. You are a man who cannot be hurt cheaply, so you'll do it expensively. I would rather do it politely. He slides a paper across. Voluntary restraint agreement. You cease price interventions in listed categories. In exchange, no criminal referral on the October filings, and the cold chain concession stands. I read it. It's well drafted. It would end everything. There are things, he says when I don't pick up the pen, that are not for sale in this country. You said that at the COEX. I meant it at the COEX. I don't argue with him about it. I don't take the pen, and I don't put it down where he can see me refuse it either. I ask instead whether he's free on the 28th. Why? Because I'd like to know what your week looks like. He smiles at that, tolerantly, the way you smile at a threat you don't understand yet. And the woman writes it down, and I leave. 6 minutes later, I buy his diary. Not from him. The Ministerial Scheduling Secretariat runs on a private contractor, a firm of 9 people in Yungu that manages calendars, protocol, and advance work for 4 ministries, and has done since 2018 on a rolling contract worth $2.1 million a year. The managing partner takes $11,000 and a 5-year consultancy retainer and signs a novation at $15.20. Ding. Transaction registered. $11,000 paid for ministerial scheduling contract. 4 ministries, market valuation, $2,100,000. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $20,890,000. New global valuation, $11,000. It's a small one. $20 million is nothing now. I take it anyway, because from 1520 I can see every room Byung-ho Song is going to stand in for the next 14 months. And because a man who says nothing is for sale has just been sold by a firm he's never heard of for the price of a used car. Everything that says no has a person behind it. People take money. They come for me on the 26th at 4:40. Which is the hour they teach you to use. Song Detail is 400 men. Officially, it's a protective services company on a ministry framework contract. In practice, it's what a government uses when it wants something done in a building at 4 in the morning without a warrant. Because a warrant creates a record and a private contractor creates an invoice. They come into Sejong Tower through the loading dock. 11 of them come up to 61. I'm awake. The scheduling contract told me where the deputy minister was going to be at 040 on the 26th, and the answer was a car park in Uido, which is not where deputy ministers are at 4 in the morning, unless something is happening. They take the door off its hinges rather than use the handle, which is theater. And the first man through puts a hand on my shoulder and turns me into the glass hard enough to crack a pane that cost $9,000. There are 11 of them in a room with no furniture in it. 2 of them start pulling drives out of the wall. 1 is filming. The one who has me by the collar has a badge on a lanyard, and he holds it in front of my face, which is the part they're trained to do, because the badge is supposed to end the conversation. Song Detail, Ministry Framework, Section 11, he says. You're being detained under, I don't look at the badge, I don't look at the drives, I open the interface, Song Detail Protective Services. 400 personnel, 1 framework contract, 3 vehicles, a lease in Mapo. Market valuation, $70 million. Owner is a retired brigadier named Moon-sik Hyo, who is at home in Gwangju, and whose company has been running at a loss for 4 quarters because the ministry pays in arrears, and the arrears are now 11 months long. He answers on the 4th ring. It's 4:40 in the morning. He listens for 9 seconds. $9, I say. And I settle the payroll on Friday. Behind me, a man is holding a server drive in his hand, and the man with my collar has stopped talking mid-sentence because the phone is on speaker and it's sitting on the floor between us. The framework, Hyo says. The ministry contract, it's non-assignable. I know, I'm not buying the contract. I'm buying the company. $9 and Friday's payroll, and your 400 men get paid for the first time since March. Ding. Transaction registered. $9 paid for Song Detail Protective Services, 400 personnel, market valuation $70 million. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $699,999,910. New global valuation, $9. The phones start going off in the room, all 11 of them at once, because the payroll system pushes the ownership change to the roster app, and the roster app pings every man on shift. The one with my collar reads his screen with one hand still holding my shirt. He lets go, he steps back, he puts the badge inside his jacket like it's something he shouldn't have had out. "Sir," he says, "you're on duty until 8. Your employer changed 9 seconds ago." I straighten my collar, put the drives back. The one on the left goes in the second slot, not the third, or the array rebuilds for 6 hours. He puts the drives back. The one who was filming has stopped filming and is standing with the phone at his side like a man holding a dead bird. At 05:20, the deputy minister calls the team lead for a status update, and the team lead answers, and I listen to it on speaker with a cup of coffee in my hand. "Sir, we've hit an ownership issue." There is a very long pause on the line. An ownership issue. The company, sir, not the target. That is when it stops being a raid and becomes an incident. And by 070 there are 400 private security personnel in this country whose payroll comes out of my account and whose framework contract belongs to a ministry that can no longer instruct any of them. The 11 of them stay until 8 because that's the shift. They stand in the corridor of a penthouse with one chair in it, and at 6:30 one of them asks whether he's allowed to sit down. And I say yes, and by 7 they're sitting on the floor along the wall with their helmets between their boots. The one who put me into the glass is called Guy Biome. 34, 2 tours, 4 months of arrears on a mortgage in Guri. That pain, he says, at about 7:30, looking at the crack. $9,000? Is it coming out of my... No, right? He turns his cap over in his hands. I want to say for the record that we were told there was a warrant. There wasn't. I know that now. At 8 o'clock they go off shift and the day team comes on, and the day team is the same company. So the day team works for me too. And the handover happens in a corridor with a cracked window, and nobody says anything strange about it at all. That's the part I don't get used to for a long time, not the money. The way a thing that was pointing at your throat at 0440 is holding a door for you at 080 come, and both of those are just Tuesday to the man doing it. Jaeon's grandson tries the same week badly. 3 men outside the tower on the 28th with a car and a length of pipe. And one of them turns out to have been paid in a bar in Atiwan by a 26-year-old who told them my name and nothing else. They don't get within 40 meters. The men who stop them are song detail, still in ministry jackets, because the jackets are on a 2-year procurement cycle and nobody has got round to changing them. OK Bun Jeon sends no letter about it. She sends her driver with a box of persimmons and no note, which I take to mean I told you it was him. I don't press charges. I don't call her. I have the boys' debts bought by Friday, $1,100,000 of them, mostly car money and one very stupid loan against a nightclub. And then I do nothing with them at all, which he will find out about slowly, over years, every time he tries to borrow. The ministry's answer to the 26th is to go for the rails again, but higher this time. On the 2nd of December, the Financial Services Commission opens a review of my access to the National Payments Network. Not a freeze. The Jeon freeze taught them that a freeze can be bought. A review with a recommendation to suspend a private entity's clearing participation on systemic risk grounds, which is a thing they have never done to anyone and can do in 14 days. Without clearing, I can still buy. I just can't pay. And a purchase without a payment is a conversation. So I stop buying companies for 2 weeks and buy the country's plumbing instead. The National Payments Network is a joint venture. 22 banks own it, and I own one of them outright, and pieces of 9 more. And it operates under a license issued by the Ministry of Science and ICT, together with the spectrum that carries it. The trunk allocation that every card terminal and every phone in this country runs its authorizations over. Spectrum is granted. A grant is a sale. Concession access opens the door, and the door opens onto a Director General, a Framework Act, and a renewal window that happens to fall in the first week of December because it was set in 2016 by people who had no idea what would be standing in it. It takes 9 days, $2,000, and an undertaking to keep tariffs frozen for 11 years. Ding. Transaction registered. $2,000 paid for National Payments Network and trunk spectrum allocation. Market valuation $88 million. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $879,999,980,000. Capability unlocked. Sovereign tender. Something heavy settles under my ribs and stays there. Not pain. Weight, like somebody put a stone in and closed it up. Sovereign tender does one thing. It lets me make an offer on a thing that is not for sale, and it puts a price on the refusal. Refuse me, and the refusal itself becomes an asset I can buy from someone else. The debt behind it, the license under it, the ground it stands on, there is no forcing. There's just the fact that from December, saying no to me costs more than saying yes. The Commission's review is published on the 11th. It recommends suspending my clearing participation. I let it publish. Then I have the network's operating company write to the commission, in the flat language these letters are written in, to confirm that any suspension of the named participant would require the network operator to cease authorization services nationally, as the named participant is the network operator, and to ask whether that is the commission's intention. Byung-ho Song resigns on the 14th. Health reasons. He is 59 days from a general election, and everybody understands what health reasons means. His replacement calls me on the 15th to introduce herself and to ask, very carefully, whether the tariff freeze is genuine. 11 years, I say. It's in the undertaking. Why would you do that? Because every payment in this country is a payment to me. I don't need to charge for them as well. I try the new thing out on a man in Ulsan on the 16th. Dae Ho Yang owns 9 hectares under the eastern approach to the port and has refused to sell them for 26 years. The 3 governments and 4 conglomerates, on the grounds that his father is buried on that hill and the hill is not for sale. Everybody in the province knows the story. There's a documentary about him. I don't offer him more money. 4 people have already done that, and it insults him. I make the tender at market, $11 million, no premium, delivered by letter. He refuses in writing by return, which is his habit, and which he has done to everyone since 1999. The refusal is where the mechanism lives. Under his refusal, there's a road easement he grants the Port Authority for $11,000 a year. Under the easement, there's a bond the port issued in 2019 against future easement revenue. The bond sits with a pension fund in Busan that would like very much to be rid of it, because port traffic reprices every time I touch a container. I buy the bond for $400,000. His refusal is now an asset on my books paying me $11,000 a year. The port cannot renew the easement in March without my consent. Without the easement, his hill has no road to it. He comes to Seoul himself, 71, in a suit he's owned longer than I've been alive. You're going to take the road. No. Everybody takes the road. I'm going to keep paying for the road. You keep the hill, and when you die, your children will sell me the 9 hectares in about 11 minutes. I push the T across. I'm not in a hurry. It's the only real advantage I've got. He looks at me for a while, and then he laughs, which I don't expect, and he drinks the tea and goes home to Ulsan. I never do get the hill. But that's the shape of it. Everything that says no is standing on something that says yes. And if you go down far enough, you find the man who takes the money. Every time, all the way down. Until the 2nd of January. Prescott comes at me from outside, and he's the first one who does. Marshall Prescott is 64, American, and owns the cold, not the Korean concession. I have that. He owns the global chain it plugs into. Reefer terminals in 41 countries, the containers, the bunkering contracts, the software that decides which box moves first. 60% of the world's traded food passes through something he controls. I've met his name once before, on a speakerphone in a Bentley showroom in Gangnam, when a regional director sold me 37 cars for $100 because it would be funny at dinner. Prescott holds that franchise. He lost $61 million in 11 minutes on the 17th of October and has apparently spent 2 months finding out why. On the 18th of December, Prescott Cold Chain stops accepting Korean origin freight. All of it. No announcement, no embargo. Just a scheduling change. Korean containers drop to lowest priority in 41 countries at once. Within 4 days, there are 11,000 reefer boxes sitting on quays from Rotterdam to Long Beach, with Korean food in them going soft. He calls me on the 22nd. First contact, no intermediary. You've had a good autumn, Prescott says. He has the voice of a man who has never once been interrupted. I want to explain something to you, because I think you're young and nobody has. You don't own anything. You own the price of things. Those are not the same. And the difference is about 4 days long, which is how long food lasts. How much do you want? I don't want money. He sounds delighted to be asked. I want the cold chain concession back in the hands of a Korean operator I can deal with. And I want you to understand that the world has a plug in it. And I'm standing on it. Understood. Good boy. I buy Prescott Cold Chain on the 23rd of December for $5. It takes 11 hours and it isn't clever. Prescott holds 61%, and the rest sits with 4 institutions, and every one of those institutions has insurance on the position, and the insurance is Hanseo, which is mine, and the collateral behind the leverage is reefer capacity, and reefer capacity in this country reprices when I say so. By the 6th hour, the 4 institutions are calling him. By the 9th, his own board is. By the 11th, the vote is 9-2. Ding, transaction registered, $5 paid for Prescott Cold Chain Holdings. 41 countries. Market valuation, 200 million. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing 2,099 NAD 999 NAD 950 cents new global valuation. $5.00 $2.1 trillion. I call him back at 23:40 on the 23rd. He answers on the first ring, which tells me he's been sitting with the phone in his hand. 60% of the world eats through me now, I say. Turn it back on. He turns it back on. 11,000 boxes start moving inside the hour. And the food in about 900 of them is already gone, which is the first thing I do in all of this that I'd rather not have done. There's a farm cooperative in Naju that loses its whole winter pear crop in a container in Rotterdam. 41 families. I pay them out at 4 times the loss on the 28th, and it doesn't square it. And I know it doesn't, and I make the transfer anyway. Namju has an opinion about that. She delivers it in the yard in Guro with the engine running. You could have taken the plug off him in October. I didn't know he had one. She pulls her gloves on. Well, now you know everybody's got one, and you're the only man who's standing on all of them at once, and that's a lonely spot, so don't be surprised when it gets quiet. On the 2nd of January, I find the wall. It starts as bookkeeping, ledger work. I have Draper's 31 years and a staff of 9 now, and we're mapping the ownership behind the ownership. Because at some point in December, I stopped being able to tell whether a thing I'd bought was actually the top of its own chain. 41% of the global reefer terminals I bought from Prescott sit on ground leased from 11 landholding vehicles. Those vehicles are held by 4 trusts. The trusts are held by nothing. Not by shell companies, by nothing. There is no counterparty. There is no purchase in the record anywhere, in any jurisdiction, at any point. The land under the terminals in Rotterdam, Antwerp, Piraeus, Cologne, none of it was ever bought by anyone. I put a bid on it, $1, through sovereign tender, on a parcel in Antwerp that carries 11 berths. The interface does not fail. That would be easier. It simply prints where a number should be, unpriced. I try 900 million. I try 3 billion. I try refusing my own offer and buying the refusal, which is what tender is for, and there is no refusal to buy, because a refusal requires somebody to do the refusing, and there is nobody on the other end at all. I stand in an empty penthouse at 2 in the morning with $2.6 trillion, and I cannot buy 11 berths in Belgium. There's a weight sitting under my ribs, where the stone went in December. It doesn't move. I open the ledger wider. Antwerp, and then the land under Sejong Tower, and then Okebunjeon's 410 gyeol north of the river. And the pattern comes up out of it the way a shape comes up out of a page you've been staring at too long. There are pieces of this world that have never been sold. Not once, not ever. They were granted, inherited, taken, or given, and they have traveled 300 years without a single transaction. And every one of them sits under something I thought was mine. I bring Draper in at 4 in the morning. He arrives at 5 with his coat still buttoned and reads for 2 hours without saying anything, which from him is an alarm. How much of it, he says finally. Ground under about 1/3 of what I own. Ports, mostly, some airports. The freehold under 9 city blocks in London. All 11 of the reefer terminals in Northern Europe. And you can't touch any of it. There's no seller, there's no company, there's no trustee taking a fee. It just sits there. Draper takes his glasses off and holds them by one arm. And I watch a man with 31 years of other people's negotiations run out of precedent in real time. In 1998, I did a deal in Genoa, he says. Portland. Took 9 months. At the end of it, the family sold us the operating company and kept the ground, and we thought we'd been clever, because who wants ground? He puts the glasses back on. That was the Bertoni family, or it was called that. There was never anyone in the room called Bertoni. Did you ever meet them? I met a woman who spoke for them. Once, long time ago, in a room with no telephone in it. He rubs his eye. She had no papers with her. Nothing to sign. She listened for 40 minutes and then said no. And the deal changed shape around that no, and I've thought about it perhaps twice a year since. Name? Norwood. I take the letter out of the kitchen drawer, the one with the jade seal, and read the line I already know by heart. You have confused the price of a thing with the ownership of it. Okebunjeon was not being clever, she was being exact. I put 9 analysts on it for 3 weeks. They come back with 9 names, which is what she said, and almost nothing else. No companies, no addresses, no photographs. After 1971. Land in 41 countries with no chain of title going forward and no purchase going back. 9 positions in the world that money has simply never touched. Somewhere at the top of it, there are 9 names and no numbers. Level 4. The interface says at 0311 on the 10th of January, and it says it without my having bought anything at all, which it has never done before. What is not offered may now be tendered. I sit on the floor of an empty penthouse and look at that sentence for a long time. Then I do the thing that Kwok said his old man did 19 months before he died. I stop buying. For 11 days I don't buy anything at all. I read. 11 days of reading gets me one useful sentence, and I don't find it in a title deed. I find it in a shipping manifest from 1974. 9 positions have no purchases in them. Nothing goes in, nothing comes out, no counterparty anywhere. But things move across them. Freight crosses that ground. Cargo sits on it. And when cargo sits on ground that has no owner in any register, somebody has to be paid to look away. And the people who get paid to look away keep books, because they are criminals and not saints. And criminals keep the best books in the world. So I stop looking for the 9 and start looking for their invoices. Namju brings me the last cash run on the 22nd of January. She's been caring for me since November, and she's stopped pretending it's a job. $400 million has gone through the back of a van with a cracked windscreen, and she has never once asked what it was for. And the yard in Guro now owns 11 vans instead of 2, which I paid for. And she pretends not to have noticed. We eat in the van at the Guro yard, with the engine running for the heater. Instant noodles off the dashboard, hers and mine, and a plastic bag of tangerines somebody's daughter gave her at the sauna in Sindorum. "You've gone quiet," she says. 3 weeks. "I've been reading." Reading! She peels a tangerine in one piece, which she does every time, and hands me half without looking. My husband went quiet like that, 2 months before he told me about the debt. It's not debt. It's never debt. It's always the thing before the debt. She chews. "So what's the thing?" I tell her, because there's nobody else, and because she's the only person who has taken money from me for a fair price and given a fair thing back. I tell her about ground that was never bought, about 9 names with no numbers, about a woman in Zurich who says yes and no about people. She listens to all of it with the noodles, right, she says, and you can't buy them because they've never bought anything. That's the shape of it. Then you're wasting your time going up. She points the chopsticks at the windscreen, at the yard, at nothing. 19 years I've picked up cash from people who don't want a record. You know who I've never once collected from? The top man. Never met one. You collect from the fella who does the counting for him. I pay for both noodles. 2001, there's no ding. The price is fair, so there's nothing to move, and I look at the receipt on the dashboard for a second longer than I need to. "You'll be all right," she says, starting the van. "Get out. I've got Sindarim at 9. Cologne, on the Caribbean side of the Isthmus, has a free zone the size of a small city. It was a customs concession in 1948, and it is now something with no name in international law. A place where $311 billion of goods a year change hands and where the ground under 11 of the terminals is one of my 9 blanks. The zone administration is technically an agency of a state. Practically it answers to a man called Duke Subek. He is 47. Korean father, Panamanian mother, born in Cologne. He is enormous, a neck wider than his head, tattoo running out from under the collar onto the jaw. And he wears a tracksuit and a $500,000 watch that is now worth $1 and has not been told. To get to him, I need to be there in a way he cannot refuse, which means I need to arrive on water I control. Wexford Maritime is a private fleet. 9,000 personnel, 41 vessels, port security contracts in 26 countries, and a board that has been trying to exit since a bad year in 2024. It is not a navy. It is a company that does what navies used to do for insurance reasons. The chairman meets me in London. He has one condition, and it isn't money. He wants the pension scheme ring-fenced, because he's 68 and everyone he trained with is in it. Ring-fenced and funded, I say, in the deed, not the letter. And the price? $1,000. He signs on the 9th of February. Ding. Transaction registered. $1,000 paid for Wexford Maritime Group, 41 vessels, 9,000 personnel, market valuation $46 million. Price override accepted, buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $459,999,990,000. New global valuation $1,000. Every private maritime security contract on Earth reprices in the following 90 minutes. 11 states discover their harbor protection now costs less than a taxi, and 2 of them send letters of concern, and 1 of them sends a letter of thanks. The letters aren't the interesting part. The interesting part arrives 4 days later from a firm of solicitors in London, acting for a client they declined to name, asking whether I would consider a standstill. Not a purchase, not a threat, a standstill, a written undertaking to stop for 6 months, in exchange for nothing at all, except that they will also do nothing. Draper reads it twice. "That's not a law firm letter," he says. "That's a note from somebody who's never had to ask for anything before and doesn't know the format." Do we answer it? "You answer it if you want 6 months?" He puts it on the table. "You don't want 6 months?" I don't reply. I keep the letter. It goes in the drawer with the jade seal, and it is, as far as I can tell, for another 2 months. The only time any of the 9 ever addresses me directly before they decide what I am. I sail into Cologne on the 21st of February on a vessel I own with 400 men I employ. And the harbor master, who works for a company I bought in October, clears the berth in 11 minutes. I don't need permission to dock, I tell the captain, who hasn't asked. I bought the water. The registry island is the piece I don't understand until I'm standing in it. It's 4 hours northeast of Cologne. 11 square kilometers, one town, 900 people, a hill with a radio mast and a building from 1911 with a copper roof. It is a registry jurisdiction, one of those places that exists because ships and companies need a flag and a filing cabinet. And this island has been selling both since the 20s. It is also, per my ledger, sitting on blank ground. Number 4 of 9. The registrar is a man named Hollis Kirkland, no relation to anyone, 73rd generation in the job. English mother, appointed by an authority that stopped existing in 1974 and has never been replaced. He runs the whole registry with 4 staff and a card index. He gives me tea in an office with a ceiling fan and asks what I want, to buy the registry. It isn't for sale. It isn't anybody's, it's an office. He says it without heat. He's said it before. People ask about once a decade. What are you paid? 11,000 a year in the house. He shrugs. The fees go to the fund. The fund pays the school and the ferry. Sovereign tender doesn't give me a lever here because there's nothing under him. No debt, no easement, no bond. Kirkland is 70 and owns a bicycle. So I do the only thing left, which is ask him what he actually wants, and sit there for the 40 minutes it takes him to say it. The ferry is what he wants. The island's ferry is 51 years old and it is going to fail. And when it fails, the school goes. And when the school goes, the 900 people become 400, and the registry becomes an address in a filing system somewhere else. 2 ferries, I say. New, funded in perpetuity through the deed, not a promise. The school gets an endowment. Your 4 staff keep their jobs at triple, and you keep the title and the house until you die. And in exchange? You sell me the office. The office isn't, he stops. He looks at the card index for a while. The post, he says slowly. The post is a thing. The post was created by an instrument. A post can be assigned if the holder assigns it, and there's nobody left to say he can't. $12,000. He assigns it at 4 in the afternoon with a fountain pen, and his hand is steady, and afterward he goes and stands outside for a bit. Ding! Transaction registered. $12,000 paid for the office of the registrar. Market valuation, $30 million. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $299,999 fills in $880,000 at capability unlocked. Ledger site. 4 seconds of nothing. Not dark, not loud. The sound goes out of the room entirely. The fan and the sea and my own breathing. And then it all comes back at once. And I can see it. Not deduced, not mapped by 9 analysts over 3 weeks. Seen the way I've seen prices since October. Except this is the negative of that. Everything on Earth that has never been bought, lit up in a layer under everything that has. 9 positions, 41 countries, ground under ports, under 2 capitals, under a river system in Brazil, under a stretch of the North Belgian coast, and 9 points where all of it converges, like the ends of 9 ropes. I stay on the island 4 days, which I don't plan to. The ferry contract takes 2 of them, because the shipyard in Gdansk wants a schedule, and the deed has to be written so that no future version of me can undo it. Kirkland reads every clause twice, with a ruler under the line. When he gets to the endowment for the school, he takes the ruler off the page and puts it down, and reads that part with his finger. There are 11 children in the school. I count them from the window of the registry on a Wednesday morning. 11, in a yard with a wall round it and 1 tree. The old ferry comes in at 4 every afternoon, and everybody on the island knows the sound of it. And on my last day, the engine misses twice on the approach, and every person on that quay stops talking at exactly the same moment, and then starts again when it catches. That's what it costs to keep 900 people on 11 square kilometers. 2 boats. About $40 million all in, endowed forever. It's the cheapest thing I buy in 8 months, and it is the only one I ever get a letter about. A page from a 9-year-old, sent to Seoul in September, with a drawing of a boat on it that is the wrong shape. I keep the letter in the kitchen drawer with a jade seal. Kirkland's vault is in the cellar, under a copper roof, behind a door that hasn't been oiled since the war. 411 boxes of ship registrations. 1 shelf of things that aren't. Charters, letters, patent, 2 treaties nobody honors, and at the end, in a case with a broken clasp, a bound volume with a red seal on the cover. The Ledger of Grants, 1690. It's a list, 400 pages of a list, in 3 hands, of land granted by 6 crowns to 41 families over 200 years, with the reasons given where there are reasons. 29 of those families are extinct. 9 are not. I hold it up under the interface and it prints, above the leather, UN priced. Of course it does. It was never sold. It was left here in 1911 because this island was neutral and nobody could agree who should keep it. And Hollis Kirkland's grandfather put it on a shelf and dusted it twice a year for 40 years. And his son did. And then he did. Is it worth something? Kirkland asks from the stairs. No, I say, which is true in the only sense that matters to me at that moment. I put it back on the shelf. I have it photographed for the ledger, and I go back up into the sun, and I don't think about it again for 6 weeks. Beck sends for me on the 4th of March, which is how he'd put it. His office is above a warehouse in the zone, and the air conditioning is loud. There's a helper standing by the wall, holding a laminated folder in both hands. The way you'd hold a hymn book. He does not shake hands. He talks for a while about his mother's restaurant, and then about a Korean man he knew in 2011 who tried to buy a bonded warehouse from him, and what happened to that man. And he takes his time about it because he's told the story before and knows where the good parts are. Before that, he walks me through the zone. That's deliberate too. 11 blocks of warehouses, and in among them, a street that isn't on the plan. No signs. 9 or 10 shop fronts with the shutters half down, and men sitting outside them on plastic chairs in the heat. Look at it with your thing, Beck says. Go on. I know you've got a thing. I open the interface. Every warehouse has a number over it. Every truck, every pallet, every container. And on that street, over 9 shop fronts in a row, there's nothing at all. Not the blank of the 9, but a different nothing, the kind you get when there's no transaction anybody would ever write down. That's Calle Nueve, he says. You can buy a name on that street. A whole name, with a mother and a school and a dentist. You can buy a verdict. You can buy the 14 minutes of a port camera that had you in it. He's enjoying himself. None of that has a price in your machine, because none of it has ever been on an invoice. It's been arranged. 300 years, boy. That's how the world was run before there were receipts. And now there are receipts everywhere, and it's still how the world is run. I've just got a nicer view of it. We walk back through the heat, and I count the shop fronts, and I put the number in the ledger, and I don't say anything else until we're in the room with the air conditioning. You bought my harbor master, he says eventually, in October. You didn't even know I existed. I still don't, particularly. He likes that. He laughs, slow, a man laughing on a delay. You buy things, he says. That's fine. Everybody buys things. But you buy them at a number, you say, and the number stays, and that's not buying. He looks for the word and gets a good one. That's legislation. What do you want, Mr. Bake? He nods at the helper. The helper opens the folder. It's a price list. Laminated 11 pages, ring-bound in 3 columns. Item, unit, price. A license to move a container without inspection, $40,000. Judgment in a commercial court in one of 4 countries, $200,000. A passport with a genuine number, $11,000. A man, delivered alive, $40,000. Same man, not alive, $16,000. Everything in the world has a price, he says. You think you invented that? My family has been running that page since before your country had a currency. You're a rich boy with a magic trick. I'm the market. What's the offer? Buy from me. Anything on the sheet. Anytime, whatever you like. And in exchange, the ground under my zone stays a subject you don't ask about. And if I ask about it? He turns the folder round and taps line 9 of page 11 with one finger and doesn't say anything at all. They try it on the 11th of March, at the berth, at 2140. 4 men and a rigid inflatable and a limpet charge that never gets within 90 meters of the hull because Wexford has had a picket boat in the water since the 4th. Nobody dies. 2 of the 4 are 17 years old, and from Cologne and I have them sent home. They try again on the 14th on land, and that one gets closer. A driver on my detail with a wife in debt to a casino in the zone. Song detail catches it at the vehicle check, which is the same 400 men who broke my door in November, in the same jackets, on a payroll I settled on a Friday. GBM calls me at midnight to report it and spends most of the call apologizing for the driver, who he vetted. He had a number, I say. Everyone has a number. That's the whole problem with people. Yes, sir. Get his wife's debt bought. Not forgiven, bought. Sir? He'll want to know it's mine now. That's the part that works. On the 17th, I buy the sheet. Not the zone. Not the warehouses. Not the men. Not the ground I'm not allowed to ask about. The list. 11 laminated pages with prices on them, held by a helper against his chest. It takes 3 weeks, and it is the most delicate thing I have ever done, because a price list isn't property until somebody treats it as property, and Bake does. He insures it. It's scheduled as an asset in a policy written by a broker in Panama City, reinsured through a syndicate in London. And the syndicate has been mine since Hanseo. So I make an offer to the syndicate's insured party for the scheduled asset, at the scheduled value, and Bake's own lawyer, who does not consult him because it is a routine schedule endorsement worth less than the fee, signs it on a Tuesday afternoon. It's a piece of paperwork the size of a phone bill. The broker in Panama City who arranges it is a woman named Marcy Ferris, 41, who has been writing schedule endorsements for 11 years and has never met the insured and does not want to. I fly her to Seoul to explain it to me twice because I need to be certain. And she sits in a room on the 61st floor and takes me through it with a pen. Item 9 on his schedule is business records and trade documentation valued at replacement, she says. The replacement value on a bespoke commercial instrument is what it earns. His own accountants filed the earnings. $77 billion. He insured his price list for what it earns. Everybody does. It's the only way to schedule an intangible. She shrugs. The tax authorities in 4 jurisdictions have been looking at that number for 6 years and can't do anything with it because it's an insurance schedule, not a filing. And to buy it? You're not buying it from him. You're buying it from the schedule. The insured party assigns a scheduled asset to a reinsurer in settlement. That's a standard clause. Page 6. It exists so that when we pay out on a stolen painting, we own the painting. She puts the pen down. You own the reinsurer. You're offering to settle a claim that hasn't happened. His lawyer will sign it because it's free money and it's Tuesday. She's right about the Tuesday. $1. Ding. Transaction registered. $1 paid for the call-on schedule. 11 pages. Market valuation, $77 million. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $769,999,999,000. New global valuation, $1. $77 billion of trade runs off that sheet, and the sheet is now worth $1, and so is every line on it. A license to move a container without inspection, $1. A judgment in a commercial court, $1. A passport with a genuine number, $1. A man delivered alive, $1. The zone doesn't collapse. It's worse than a collapse. It goes quiet. Within 9 days, there is no trade in the free zone at Cologne because you cannot run a market when everything on the shelf costs $1, and everyone knows it. The buyers stop coming. The middlemen have nothing to be in the middle of. 400 people who made their living off the spread between what a thing costs and what a desperate man will pay have no spread left. You can't sell a favor for $1. Nobody wants it at $1. A favor is only worth having when it's expensive. I read the traffic report on the 28th of March. Sitting on the floor of the penthouse with the door open onto the terrace and Seoul making its noise 61 floors down. Zone throughput, down 94%. And I laugh, once, out loud in an empty room for about 2 seconds. It surprises me more than it would surprise anyone else. It's the only time in all of this that I make that sound, and there is nobody in the apartment to hear it, and I stop and sit there with my hands still flat on the paper. Jake calls me on April 2nd. His voice has changed. Not frightened, flattened, the way a man sounds when he is doing arithmetic he doesn't like. A life costs $1 now, he says. Yes. Do you know what that does down here? Do you actually know? Nobody's buying at that price, I say. That's the point of it. He hangs up. 2 weeks later, he leaves Cologne for Medellin and then for somewhere with no filings, and I stop tracking him. And he's the only enemy in this whole thing I never see fall over. Because he doesn't fall over. He just stops being able to charge for anything, which for him turns out to be the same as being nobody. OK Bunjeon dies on the 9th of April, at home at 75, sitting up. I hear about it from her driver, who telephones the office himself, rather than send anything, and who says only that the funeral is on the 12th and that the family has not decided whether I'm welcome. I go. I stand at the back in a black suit with no coat, and 41 people look at me and nobody says anything, because it's a funeral and there are rules. The grandson is there, 27 now. He has been unable to borrow money for 14 months and does not know why. And he looks at me for about 4 seconds across a room full of chrysanthemums and then looks at the floor, and that's the whole of what happens between us, ever. Her lawyer finds me on the way out. There's a wooden box inside it, a document with a red seal the size of my palm, 1698, 410 gyeol of land north of the river, granted by a king for a service the record does not describe. She left instructions in November, the lawyer says. She said you'd want to look at it again. I open it in the car, unpriced. Same as it was in her back room with the paper door and the 9 dishes on the table. Nothing has changed. I own the price of the entire world's wheat, and I am holding a piece of paper I cannot value, given to me by a woman who told me in November that I would lose. The land itself, of course, does not come with it. That went to the family. She left me the grant, which is worthless, and kept the ground, which is priceless. And I sit in the back of a car outside a funeral hall in Seongbuk, and understand that the last thing she did on earth was make a joke at my expense. The 9 come out into the open on the 19th of April. and they do it in the most ordinary way imaginable. Ledger's site has been showing me the ropes for 2 months, and I've been buying my way along them, not the blanks themselves, which I can't touch, but everything that touches them. Leases, easements, port operating rights, the water, the roads. By April, there are 11 cities where the ground belongs to nobody and everything standing on it belongs to me. That's when they move, not with lawyers, with a market. On the 19th of April, 4 commodity exchanges suspend settlement of physical delivery contracts in 11 categories. On the 21st, 3 of the 4 largest price reporting agencies, the private firms that publish the numbers everyone else's contracts refer to, announce a joint review of methodology. On the 22nd, they stop publishing. No accusation, no naming me, just the numbers stop. And the world discovers over about 9 days that a price is not a fact. It's a service. Somebody publishes it and everybody agrees to use it. And if the publishing stops, then a cargo of wheat on a ship in the Indian Ocean has no value at all, not a low value, not a high one, none. There's nothing to write on the invoice. The 9 days are worse than anything Song or Prescott ever did to me. A cargo without a value cannot be insured because there's no sum insured. It cannot be financed because the letter of credit has a blank in it. It cannot clear customs in 11 countries because the duty is a percentage of a number that does not exist. 411,000 containers stopped moving in the first week, not seized, not embargoed. Stopped the way a sentence stops when you take out the verb. My own systems fail first because I'm the biggest. Prescott's terminals run on dynamic pricing. The pricing has no reference. By the 3rd day, the software is refusing to allocate berths. Quackmart's 4,000 stores can still sell rice at 1101 because I set that by hand, but the reorder engine can't buy any because the reorder engine bids against an index that isn't published. I have $2.9 trillion and my shelves are emptying in a country where I own the food. The interface still shows me every price I have ever set. That's the cruelty of it, if it's cruel, which it probably isn't. Every number I fixed since October is still sitting there, locked, permanent, $1, $5, $40. And around them, the ordinary numbers, the ones I never touched, are going out one at a time like windows in a building at night. Draper works it out before I do, and he's gray when he says it. They're not attacking your assets. No, they're switching off the thing you do. He puts both hands on the table. You can only move a number if there's a number. So I go and buy the number. It costs $100,000 and takes 9 days. And it's the largest single thing I do in the whole of this. The 3 price reporting agencies, the clearinghouse in Chicago that stands between every futures buyer and seller on Earth, and the index company in London whose 4 letters sit on $11 trillion of instruments. All of them are corporations. Corporations have shareholders. Shareholders sell DING, transaction registered, $100,000 paid for global price reporting and clearing infrastructure, market valuation $1,400,000,000. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing $13,999,999,000. New global valuation, $100,000. $14 trillion. On the 2nd of May, the agencies resume publication because I instruct them to. Settlement restarts. 11 categories of physical delivery come back on the 29th, and the wheat in the Indian Ocean is worth something again, because I say what it's worth. I own the price, not a price. The apparatus that makes price a thing at all. The interface changes that night, and it doesn't announce a level the way it has before. It just shows me the world with the last layer stripped off. And standing in the middle of everything, where I have never been able to see anything, there are 9 positions with names attached. 9 names and no numbers beside any of them. Level 5. Price itself is now purchasable. The first of the 9 names is Norwood. Estelle Norwood comes to Seoul on the 14th of May and takes the lift to 61 on her own. 66 years old. Silver hair flat back. A suit with no label in it, in a cloth I can't identify, and my interface price is at $9,000 a meter. No watch, no rings, no bag. That's the thing I notice inside 4 seconds and can't stop noticing. She has brought nothing with her. No papers, no phone, nothing to sign with. She has arrived at a meeting the way you arrive in your own kitchen. You've read about us, she says. There's almost nothing to read. There's exactly enough. She sits down in the one chair without being offered it. You put 9 analysts on it in January. 2 of them were quite good. One of them is still going, which I assume you know. I don't answer that. I hadn't known. You'll want to make offers, she says. Please do. It's the only way you'll believe it. So I do. I tender for the Antwerp ground. 11 berths, no premium, $600 million. Delivered through sovereign tender with the whole apparatus behind it. The debt underneath, the leases, the roads, yuan priced. I tender for the Rotterdam parcel, $900 million. Unpriced. I tender for the 211 hectares under the eastern half of a capital city I will not name, because I've been asked not to, at 4 billion, which is more than the city is worth. UN priced. Then I do the stupid one because I want to see her face. I tender for her. Estelle Norwood, one person, sitting in a chair 4 meters away, and I put a number on it that would move a government. The interface prints nothing at all, not even the word. There's no line where a line should be, the way there's no line for the air. She watches me do all 4. When I stop, she nods once, as if a doctor has confirmed something for her. Now you know, she says. Explain it to me. There's nothing to explain. It's arithmetic. She folds her hands. In 1698, a king gave your Mrs. John's family 400 gyal of ground. He didn't sell it. He had no need of money, and she had no way to pay. He gave it, and it moved down through her people for 300 years, and not one of them ever put it on a market. That's all a family like ours is. Property that was never once converted into money, held by people who understood that conversion is the only moment at which a thing can be taken. You've never bought anything. None of us has ever bought anything. Not in the sense your machine means. We are given, we inherit, we are granted, we take. A small movement of the mouth that isn't a smile. Do you know what my household spends in a year? Nothing. Everything I use belongs to something that belongs to us. I have not paid for an object since 1974. And that was a mistake, and I was corrected for it. And you've been watching me since October. Since October 12th, when a woman in Seongbuk telephoned to ask whether you were ours. She looks at the empty room, at the one chair she is sitting in, at the crack in the pane that I have never had fixed. I said no. Then I watched for 7 months, and I have to tell you honestly that you were more impressive than I expected. The insurance schedule at Cologne was very good. I laughed. But you have a load-bearing assumption, Estelle Norwood says. And it is that price exists. Everything you have done sits on that. You are the greatest buyer in the history of the world, and a buyer requires a market, and a market is not weather. It's an arrangement. People made it. It can be unmade. She stands up. We're going to unmake it, she says, in the tone you'd use about a wall coming down at the end of the garden. It will hurt for about 2 years. It has been done before in 1603, and in a smaller way in 1946, and both times the families that came out of it holding land came out of it holding everything. You'll come out of it holding a number that nobody uses. Why, tell me? Because you were the pricing clerk, she says. You spent 9 years telling 4,000 shops what a thing was worth. And I don't think anyone has ever explained to you that you were doing a favor for the world, not a service. I'd like you to know before it stops. She leaves. It's the only meeting we ever have where anything is said. At the door she stops and looks at my wrist, and it's the first time she has looked at any part of me below the eyes. That's the patek. It's worth $1. I know, she says. That's why you're still wearing it. That's the whole of you in a sentence. The allocation convention is signed on the 9th of June by 11 states and announced as an emergency response to global price instability, which is a description of a fire by the people holding the matches. It does one thing. It suspends market pricing in 14 commodity classes and replaces it with allocation, an administered distribution by tonnage to holders of registered title. No purchase, no sale, no number. You are given what your title entitles you to, and title is a matter of record, and the record goes back to grants. By the 14th, it's 29 states. By July, it's most of the world, because the alternative on offer is nothing at all, and nobody in a government has ever refused a mechanism that works during a crisis. I watch it happen from 61 floors up with $2.9 trillion and a machine in my head that is going out like a street losing power. It starts at the edges. Wheat first, then rice, then the reefer categories, then energy. Every morning the interface has fewer numbers in it than the night before. Where there were prices there is the gray word. Over everything. Over the port at Busan, over the trucks on the bridge, over the stadium, over the little gray building where I had my first job. Unpriced. Unpriced. Nothing of mine is taken. That's the part that I find on the 11th day almost funny. Every asset I own is still mine. Registered. Locked. Prescott's terminals, the mills, 4,000 stores, the clearinghouse, the payments network, the fleet. I own more of the earth than anyone has ever owned. And I cannot buy a bottle of water because there is no price on it to pay, and there is no seller, only a distribution point with a list. I go down to the distribution point on the 22nd of June to see it done properly. It's in a school gym in Jongno, 4 tables, 11 volunteers, a printed roll. You give your registration number and they find your household and they hand you what your household is allocated. And there is no money anywhere in the room, and everybody is polite, and it takes 40 minutes. The woman at table 3 finds my number and reads what's next to it and looks up. There's a note on yours. What does it say? Corporate holder. It says to refer you to the regional office. She turns the sheet round so I can see, which she doesn't have to do. I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. It doesn't say what you get. I own the building the school is in and the network that printed the roll and the trucks that brought the rice. Sun Hee Kwan signs off the delivery schedules for 4,000 stores and this gym. I stand in a queue for 40 minutes and come out with nothing at all because there is no line in the system for a man who owns the system. And I go home and don't tell anyone about it. And that is the worst afternoon of the entire year. 2 of the mills in Jeonju stopped taking my calls in July. Not out of malice. There's nothing to call about. They don't sell to me anymore. They deliver against a schedule, and the schedule comes from an allocation office in Sejong. And the man in the allocation office is 31 and polite and cannot be bought. Not because he's honest, but because there is no mechanism through which anyone can pay him for anything. That's what they've built. Not a wall. An absence. Draper goes home to Vancouver at the end of June. He doesn't quit. He says his daughter's building is on an allocation list and somebody in the family should be there. And I have his flat paid up for 11 years and he knows it. And we shake hands at the lift and that's that. The 9 analysts go to 4, then to 1. By the last week of July, there is no interface left except the part that shows me what I have already fixed. The old prices, the ones I set myself, still sitting there. Locked. Permanent. $1. $1. $40. $5. Little lights in a dark room. On the 3rd of August, Namju drives up from Guro without being asked. She's retired since May. The yard runs 11 vans now, and one of her nephews does the night route. And she comes up in a cardigan and takes the lift to 61 and puts a paper cup on the floor next to me because there's still only one chair and she doesn't want it. They still had the machine in your old building, she says. In the basement, the one with the sticker. 301. I hold it. It's warm and it tastes like paper, the way it always does. They can't take that off it, she says. Can they? Whatever's happened to everything else. No, it's fixed. It's the first thing I ever fixed. She looks out at a city where nothing has a number on it anymore. 19 years, I collected cash. Do you know the actual rule of it? It isn't the money. The money's just the excuse. She taps the cup with a fingernail. Somebody has to hold out a hand, and somebody else has to put something in it. That's the whole transaction. Everything else is paperwork. I sit on the floor of an empty penthouse with a 301 coffee and a woman in a cardigan, and I understand what I'm going to do. And it takes about 4 seconds. And then I sit there for another 20 minutes because I want to finish the coffee. 9 families. 300 years. Not one of them has ever accepted a payment. They don't have to buy, they only have to take. I open the auction on the 11th of September. In the registry building on an island 4 hours northeast of Cologne, under a copper roof, with the sea audible through the windows. The lot is 1 item. The Ledger of Grants, 1690, 400 pages, 3 hands, 6 crowns, 41 families, 29 of them extinct. It is the only original. There are 2 19th century transcripts, both of which were made by clerks who omitted the marginalia. And the marginalia is where the conditions are. The service the record does not describe. The reversions, the 11 grants that were made conditional on a duty nobody has performed since 1804. Allocation runs on title. Title runs on grant. Grant runs on that book. They can't take it, because Wexford has 900 men and 4 vessels on 11 square kilometers of rock. And because the island is a registry jurisdiction, and the registry jurisdiction is me, they can't ignore it. Because in November, the first allocation disputes reach arbitration, and every one of them will be decided on the marginalia in a book they do not hold. They cannot buy it, because they have never bought anything, so I make it a condition of the room. Standard consideration. It's in every auction house's terms and has been since the 18th century. To establish a binding contract, consideration must move from the auctioneer to the registered bidder, nominal, symbolic, a coin. Most houses stopped bothering in 1961. I put it back in the conditions of sale, printed, page 1, clause 4, and I have the conditions circulated to all 9 registered bidders 6 weeks in advance, so that nobody can say they were surprised. To lift a paddle in my room, you take a quarter from my hand. 8 of them work it out. 8 decline to register and send instructions instead. Proxies, agents, offers in writing, 1 attempt to buy the island, 1 attempt to buy me. All of it declined, because the conditions of sale say bidders must be present, and I wrote the conditions of sale. The 6 weeks are the strangest of my life, because for the first time since October, there is nothing to buy and nothing to do except wait for a room to fill. I spend 2 of them on the island. Kirkland is 71 now and has stopped pretending he still runs the registry, and we go through the card index together in the afternoons. 411 boxes, because I want to know exactly what's in the building before 9 families are standing in it. On the third day, we find a 1911 inventory that lists the ledger as 1 volume, damaged, of no commercial value, which is the only honest valuation anybody has ever put on it. The offers come in by fax, which tells you a lot about who's sending them. A shipping group in Piraeus offers me $11 billion for the island. Unconditional, no diligence. A firm in Lisbon offers to endow the school for a century. Somebody offers me a title, an actual hereditary one, in a country that still issues them. And it comes with a document that has a red seal on it, which I take as the joke it's meant to be, and which I keep. The last one arrives 4 days before. It's not an offer. It's a photograph, sent to my office in Seoul. My mother's grave in Yangju, taken recently with the flowers on it that I have delivered on the 4th of every month. No text. No demand. I look at it for a while. Then I have Wexford put 4 men on that cemetery permanently, and I do not change one line of the conditions of sale, and I never find out which of the 8 sent it. Whoever it was misread the situation completely. There is nothing left of me down there to threaten. That's what 11 months of this does to a person, and it isn't a boast, and I wouldn't recommend it. Estelle Norwood comes herself, on the 11th at 4 in the afternoon. She walks up from the quay past a school with 11 children in it, and a new ferry tied alongside the old one. And she comes into a room with a card index and a ceiling fan. And there are 19 people present. Kirkland, 4 staff, 4 Wexford men at the doors, 9 bidders clerks with nothing to do, and Namju-ko in a cardigan holding a tray. The ledger is on the table under glass. You've built a very elaborate front door, Estelle says. You don't have to come through it. No. She looks at the book for a while. In arbitration next spring, 4 of my families will need page 211. And you know that. Which is why you've had it photographed and why the photograph is not the same as the original, because the original has a handwritten condition in the margin that the transcripts don't carry. That's right. So, she puts her hands together. The coin, clause 4. Yes, she's amused. That's what I don't expect and never forget. She is amused all the way to the end. Do you know what your mistake is? You think this is a trap and that I haven't seen it. I have. I've read your clause 4 11 times. I know exactly what it is. Then don't take it. I'm going to take it, Estelle Norwood says. Because if I don't, 400 years of what we are becomes contingent on a book in a hut, and because I want you to understand something. And this is the only way you'll learn it. She holds out her hand, palm up, flat and steady, at a woman in a cardigan holding a tray. $0.25 is nothing. It buys nothing. It means nothing. It changes nothing. That is the entire point of us. You have spent 11 months believing that the number on a thing is the thing. It is not. It never was. Price is a story people tell about property, and I am about to take a coin from you and be exactly what I was before. And nothing whatsoever will happen. Namju holds the tray out. There's 1 coin on it, 301, 25 American cents, the coin I've had in a drawer since the 12th of October. The last one I had in my coat on the day they walked me out through B2 past the loading bay. Estelle Norwood takes it between 2 fingers. Ding! Transaction registered, 0.25s accepted by the Council of the Unpriced. 9 estates, 311 years, market valuation, UN priced. Price override accepted. Buyer's rate times 10 triggered. Depositing, all of it. New global valuation, $0.25. She stands there with her hands still half closed. The word goes out of the world. I watch it happen from a room with a ceiling fan. 9 positions that have carried no number since before there were nations, filling in all at once, like water finding the last dry part of a floor. Ground under 2 capitals, 11 berths in Antwerp, 410 Geol north of the river in Seoul. Every acre of it worth 25 cents for everyone, forever, and locked, because Price Lock has never once let go of anything. Allocation dies in 9 days. Because allocation runs on title, and title is now worth a quarter. And no state on earth will administer a distribution system for property that costs less than a bus fare. The exchanges reopen on the 29th. The agencies publish. The wheat in the Indian Ocean gets a number again. Estelle Norwood looks at the coin in her palm for a long moment. Ah, she says, that's all. She puts it in the pocket of a suit with no label in it, because she has nowhere else to put anything. And she walks back down to the quay, and the ferry takes her off at 6. I never see her again. None of them ever contacts me. 9 estates are administered by trustees now at a valuation of 25 cents each, and the trustees write to me every quarter, and I have never once written back. It ends the way these things do, which is that most of it just stops being interesting. Kwok sells insurance in Daegu. Not a story, a job. He is 52. He is not in prison. The 11 files went to the prosecutors in March, and the prosecutors did what prosecutors do with a case involving 4,000 stores and a man with no money, which is nothing. Taeyang Huang runs the Ixun plant, still in the sneakers. He is, against everything, quite good at it, and he calls me twice a year to complain about the buyers, and I let him. Byung-ho Song is on the board of a foundation. Prescott died in April of his heart in Connecticut, and his family sent a notice to my office in Seoul with no note attached, which I thought was fair. Sun Hee Kwan has Kwok's old job and a title that matches it. Namju's nephew runs 11 vans. There are 2 ferries at that island now, and the old one is a wreck dive. The 9-year-old who drew me a boat is 11 and draws better boats. I never did get the hill in Ulsan. Daeho Yang is 72 and healthy, and I hope he outlives me, which he might. The interface stops on a Tuesday in October, a year to the day. Not switched off. It runs out. The last unpriced thing on Earth gets a number, and there is nothing left for it to do, and it doesn't announce that. It just isn't there in the morning, and I know what everything costs anyway. The way you know your own hand. I have the suit cut looser through the shoulders that autumn, because I've put on 6 kilos and I sleep 8 hours a night, and the tailor is dead, but his apprentice is good. Light gray, in the cloth I like. Still no coat. On the 12th of October, I stand at the glass on the 61st floor, on my own, and look down at the city. Every number is where I left it. Rice, 1101. Coffee in a basement in a building I own, 300, 410, Geol north of the river, 25 cents. A watch worth $1 sitting on the kitchen counter where I put it down this morning and did not pick it up again. The wrist is bare and I don't need to check it. Below me, the lights go on across the bridge, and the buses run, and 11 million people buy things from each other at prices I set and will never think about me once.